On this month's market update, we are going to take a look at the latest NAR data.
We'll also talk about employment, inflation, as well as how that's impacting consumer sentiment.
How will all this data have a potential impact on Fed policy and mortgage rates?
We'll discuss all that and more on this month's market update.
Welcome to this month's market update. Ruben, it sure has been a tumultuous past 30 days in the economy and globally.
Yeah, it certainly has. Let's just jump right in, shall we?
Absolutely. Let's talk about the latest NAR data. It certainly was not as expected.
Yeah, so we came in lower than most expectations were, down 3.6% from the previous month in March, and down a full percentage point from last year. So given that mortgage rates in January and February were actually lower than the previous year, it seemed like we should have been set up to see a stronger month in March.
Yeah, it was surprising to see that the numbers are quite sluggish now.
Inventory is a little bit low in some places, so that may be restraining sales, the Northeast and Midwest a bit. But when you look at the South, we still have markets where home prices are even going backwards. So it certainly seems like a good number of consumers are taking a wait and see approach. An interesting thing to note is that, these are March numbers. So in theory, these are mostly contracts that were entered into in January and February and then closed in March. So we're probably still not really even seeing the impact of inflation and of what's happening in terms of the war in Iran impacting our market yet. So this is prior to that. So it's going to be interesting to see what April numbers, when we really start to see kind of the sentiment impact of that start to show up in the real estate market.
Yeah, well, some of the data is beginning to show that mortgage applications are also at an all-time low at this time. We haven't seen low numbers, so the lagging indicators might indicate that we're not going to start seeing the spring market as we were forecasted to see.
Yeah, unfortunately, the timing of global events is happening when we need the most stability as an industry, right? Like we're leading into the beginning of the sales season. And now instead of a situation where we were looking like we were going to have lower year over year rates as we went into the spring and the summer, we're looking at, they're still down year over year right now, but they've trended back up to where they're getting nearly flat. It's not as much of a gain as we thought. We've seen affordability even start to deteriorate a little bit, not a lot, just about a percentage point from where it was earlier in the year, but it's still an issue. Going into this year, I think most consumers were expecting to see lower interest rates, a little more inventory on the market, things starting to kind of pick up. And instead, we've got now rising mortgage rates, inventories there, but sluggish. And it's in quite a few places. It's pretty sluggish in the Northeast and the Midwest, where they're actually seeing prices increasing back in 6-7% range. In terms of prices in general, across the country, we did see a little bit of an acceleration from the previous month. We went up 1.4% year over year in March. Again, it's mixed though, because we're seeing prices went backwards in the West. They were flat in the South, but they were up 4.9% in the Midwest and 5.7% in the Northeast. So we've kind of got 2, maybe even 4 different markets happening regionally in the country right now. There's a lot of differentiation geographically in terms of what the housing market looks like, but they're all relatively slow just for different reasons right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what we're hearing a lot in our coaching company at MAPS too is that we have buyers that are just starting to or they're continuing to be on the fence because between the uncertainty of what's going on, the slight increase in mortgage rates, folks that are not highly motivated because of a life event that has happened, they're not going to move anytime soon. And that means for a real estate professional that wants to hit certain revenue milestone goals this year that they may have to talk to a lot more humans in order to have more consultations, especially as it comes to buyers, and to continue to focus on building that listing inventory as, those who are motivated buyers will want to be able to take advantage of a variety of houses that are going to be on the market. You nailed it. I mean, we were hearing from some of our coaching clients that there are markets where there's very little inventory and homes still sell within days. Yet overarchingly, we're hearing that the days on market continues to increase.
Yeah, some of the places where we've seen the most inventory, the weakest sales demand figures, like West Coast of Florida, parts of Texas, it's still, and this has been the story for like a couple of years now, where it's places that saw the largest run-ups in prices during the kind of peak of the market after the pandemic, middle of the pandemic. those are the places that seem to have, for the most part, slowed down the most. We're seeing kind of what is essentially probably a market correction toward more affordability in those places, but it's meant lower sales, more inventory, and prices in some cases going backwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're really hearing that from the folks on the West Coast in particular as well. And I would imagine up in the Northeast, tight inventory and sluggish buy sides continue to contribute to what feels like a slower market. How is this having an impact despite the positivity that we thought we heard from the job reports?
Yeah, so unemployment ticked down from 4.4 to 4.3. In reality, it was essentially flat, right? That's not really a big movement. We're not really adding jobs. The jobs report looked positive because, we had a positive number of jobs that month, but we'd gone backwards the previous month. On net, it was only around between 40 and 50,000 jobs between the 2 months. And a lot of the big movement that happened both down and up between those 2 months was actually strikes in healthcare in the Northeast. So there was like pretty large nursing strikes. When they are on strike, it impacts employment numbers in terms of like job additions, right? They don't show up as unemployed because they're not seeking other jobs, but they do show up as like jobs that were destroyed during that time period. While unemployment hasn't moved up, hiring's very weak, and that's creating some of the uncertainty we're seeing in consumers. And the reason unemployment's not trending up despite weak hiring is a little bit complex as well. It gets into the fact that, with the crackdowns on immigration, some of the demographic things that are happening with older generations starting to kind of reach retirement age and maybe even retiring slightly earlier, we're not seeing the influx into the labor force. So normally, the pattern you see is you have a certain number of people who are already in the labor force, they're working, they have jobs, that's your employment base. And then in any given month, there's new jobs added, but there's also new workers added, people who graduate from college, immigrate from other places, decide to get a job when they'd previously not been working for whatever reason. What we're seeing is both of those things are shrinking. The people who have jobs and are in the middle of that, it's staying relatively static, but the inflow of jobs and inflow of workers both seem to be decreasing right now. In the long run, when you look at things like economic growth, that's probably not a best case scenario. It's probably something that we can tolerate and sustain for a while, but eventually you want to see, growing workforce, growing job statistics. So it's something we're keeping our eye on. And when you don't have growing job numbers, and you have that static labor market, it makes people feel more stuck. It makes people feel less confident in their ability to go get another job. When they hear about layoffs, it's more concerning because now you're questioning, will I have a job next year? And all that weighs on people's decisions, especially big ones like something, taking on a mortgage to buy a new house.
Yeah. And in effect, the largest asset or perhaps the largest bill that you are going to be responsible for in economic times of uncertainty.
Exactly. And speaking of bills, inflation statistics weren't great either, right?
Let's talk about that. So what happened over the last month?
The big headline is what's been happening in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, driving up oil prices. So we've now are starting to see the beginnings of this impacting national statistics, where we saw inflation numbers tick up to 3.3%.
And it's because of the impact that we discussed in last month's episode in regards to just how much we are reliant on oil and gas and the impacts that it has in every day, from the way that you heat your house to plastics to the many ways that the infrastructure of oil and gas ends up translating into the economy of the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. And this is really just the beginning of it, because most of the changes in this statistic were driven directly by gasoline and like what you talk about, fuel oil for heating. So some of those secondary effects you mentioned, we won't see for a little bit longer when you talk about things like fertilizer and stuff like that may be coming down the road. That's definitely impacting people's pocketbooks right now. People are paying much more for gas than they were. That's a regular expense people are seeing on a regular basis when they fill up their cars. That deteriorates spending power.
We're seeing it with airplane prices now, right? Tickets have significantly gone up already for those of us who have started to look at travel for as early as the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're taking a longer, you're looking at international flights, the prices have gone up quite noticeably.
They're eye-watering now. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, that's all impacting. 'Cause, yeah, people were looking at planning their summer vacations, and now all of a sudden that trip to Disney World looking even more expensive than it did 6 months ago. The good news that's kind of buried in here is that core inflation didn't really move much. Still around, I believe it was 2.6%. Why is that good news? Obviously, for any individual of us, like when we're going out buying groceries, buying gasoline, the other numbers kind of more relevant to our everyday lives. But when you look at what the decisions the Fed is making, we're not in a situation, at least yet, where the Fed's talking seriously about increasing mortgage rates because they're going to view this as potentially transitory. Typically when we see an energy shock, what we see is it kind of move through the system. Other fuels alternatives start emerging. People change their behavior, driving less, things like that. And it kind of, in the end, will balance itself out to some extent in terms of inflation because it has a negative impact on demand. Like that's what we feel is that we can't buy as much stuff. But when we stop buying stuff, that helps balance out the impact on prices, right? That's sort of the whole idea behind increasing interest rates. That's another way to like decrease people's spending. We also decrease our spending when stuff gets more expensive in general. So they're going to look at this closely and see just sort of how it finds its way into general prices and if that looks like something that's going to become a trend or just a little bump in the road that'll correct itself. Right now, the view is to approach this as potentially a bump in the road that'll work its way through. We have to watch as the year progresses whether that is going to be the case or whether this is going to be some kind of long-term sustained issue that's going to find its way into more and more prices and therefore the Fed feels the need to act. The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index this past month hit the lowest in its history, I believe. Gas prices. It's the two things we've been talking about. So the labor market was already kind of weighing on it when you dug into what was going on. People's expectations in particular about the future have gotten worse over the last year. That's one thing that's been driving down this consumer sentiment index. That index also has historically been hypersensitive to gas price movements. So now we're coming off of what was already a relatively low number. Gas prices jump above $4 a gallon.
And those are the price tags that folks can see right away, right? So it's what's truly hitting everyday life.
Yeah, you're buying it on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, groceries.
Yeah, when car prices go up, that only impacts the people who are in the market for a car for the most part. When grocery prices go up, when gas prices go up, that impacts almost everybody because we're all purchasing those things with great frequency. And also in the case of both those things, like we call them, particularly with gasoline, they have a very low elasticity. So what that means is essentially when the price of gas goes up, you still buy generally about the same amount of gas. It takes a long time for people to adopt strategies to decrease the amount of gas they're buying. If I double the gas this week, you don't have a plan right now, most likely, to figure out how you're going to get to work using less gasoline. You're just going to have to pay for more gas.
Yeah, people keep their same lifestyle cadence. They don't change their habits, at least not quickly enough to have an impact on the money and the paycheck that they continue to bring in, probably at the same level as they did a year or two ago.
Exactly. So, that's the kind of thing we're seeing, not just on normal consumer goods, but that psychological impact affects things like housing as well. People feel uncertain about their ability to maintain their jobs or get a new job or get a raise. That impacts things when they're paying more, watching their money go out of their bank accounts. They're paying more for gas and they're looking at mortgage payment ranges and things like that. And now, there's an extra $60, $70 out of my budget every month disappearing to gasoline.
And that in combination with a down payment that otherwise you could lock up in something like an asset, or to make the decision in light of uncertainty to maybe have that down payment available to make different decisions.
Yeah, or even just sitting on that chunk of cash on the off chance that you're not going to have your job in 6 months and wanting to have that larger nest egg just to be able to get you by in case things take a turn for the worse. That's the kind of thinking that we're seeing more and more commonly, frequently, I think, right now.
So all things considered, we have another Fed meeting coming up soon. How do you anticipate the Fed will take this into consideration as they are looking at updates to potential policy needed as well?
Yeah, right now it's essentially a foregone conclusion that they'll simply hold rates steady, most likely for essentially the remainder of the year. If things kind of resolved themselves in a way that doesn't create much more inflation, like we get past what's going on with oil prices, or at least they stabilize at like a relatively reasonable level, we may see the Fed move rates late in the year, but it's increasingly less likely. The longer this goes on, the more uncertainty that's being injected into things, the more likely the Fed essentially doesn't alter rates at all this year.
Do you see a scenario where the Fed policy might indicate that rates would be going down?
It's becoming less and less likely right now. That going into this year, we were expecting 2 rate decreases. We already had seen mortgage rates start to dip. We were expecting rates mortgage rates in particular to kind of work their way down to about 6%, maybe a little bit lower. In fact, we almost got below 6% earlier this year. This has thrown a monkey wrench in all of that. I think rates will want to trend down a little bit if we can just get to a steady state where the situation gets resolved. We move past what's going on out of the kind of like intense uncertainty. When we get there, we'll see potentially rates drift down a little bit on their own as sort of treasury rates adjust. But in general, I don't think we're going to see that from the Fed. I don't think at this point we're likely to see the Fed doing us any favors.
So we'll continue to keep a close eye out on what the story of oil and gas is going to look like, how the labor market will continue to progress as we step into the next 90 days, and how this will ultimately all be tied to having an impact on those mortgage rates.
Yeah, a lot going on.
As always, Ruben, thank you very much for keeping a close eye out on all the economic data and all things considered as we step into the next few months.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, Gabby.
And for those of you who would like to continue to keep a close eye out alongside us, please continue to click like and subscribe to our podcast so we can give you the play-by-play 30 days at a time.
Until next time.